I think I'm in.
Hey, Christina, sorry, I got a phone call.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, Kathy.
Look at how well this is working.
Yay.
Can hear you.
Thank you so much for your help.
Sure. It was like the Parks Board, same thing. They got sent home and their meeting started earlier than ours and they can't get the YouTube to work. So.
Oh, no.
But ours is working.
Yeah, this looks so far so good. So I'll probably just, I guess, stop my video sharing and mute myself until 6, and then I'll jump back in.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'm glad it works.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
See you in a bit.
Okay, bye.
Hi.
Oh, we're live on YouTube?
Yeah, since this is kind of the first time I was using it, and Ken had problems. He didn't get his to work, so Christina wanted to test her equipment and everything, so I had to start the meeting.
Christina, is it working?
It is. It worked really well for her, so that was good.
It's working. I'm here. Hi.
We had issues last time, right?
Yeah, I couldn't get in.
Ah, well, you're here now.
Yep.
We're live on YouTube.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
I'm sure if my parents were watching, they'd change the channel. Not that guy.
I'm going to step away for a few more minutes, so I'll be back.
Okay. I'll just chit-chat with Kathy.
Okay.
Has it started snowing yet? I haven't seen it.
No, it hasn't. It's funny because I left at around lunchtime to go, and I did go do a run, and it felt like up by City Hall there was some flakes, but nada.
So I gotta figure out how I get home, right? Covered like sled. Toboggan.
Yeah, what are you doing at City Hall? Everybody was supposed to go home because of the storm.
Can't get enough of this place.
Well, you don't know where I live, so I'm not going to tell you that you can walk over to my house. If it snows bad enough.
I'll be fine.
There's a couch there at City Hall.
I'll be fine. I guess it's supposed to snow worse tomorrow. And there weren't a lot of people here today. Josh. Oh, yeah. Do you think we should call roll?
Yeah, I think so. Is Mayor Walters gonna be the chair?
Yeah, but like I don't know. Yes, she will, but I just don't know about calling roll. I guess I can read it off.
Yeah, or she could, because she does a good job.
But I don't know if she has a list. I was just gonna read the emails.
Oh, I think she just literally looks at who's here.
Okay.
Hey,
Walters, how are you?
Hi.
You're live on YouTube right now.
Am I? Cool. Finally. How's everybody doing? It's cold out there.
yeah, Jerry's got his jacket on.
Did you get my
Surprise.
text, Jules, about getting the heat on in here? Is that a term goal? To restore the heat to City Hall.
Well, wait till the summer when it's super hot in there. It's even better.
This first day it was wildfires, right? Gosh.
Yeah.
Jules, we were thinking for calling the roll, you just read the list of participants?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got off the Parks Board. They have 2 new members. And they just voted Vicky Handy to be the chairperson, which is great. She's great. Hey, Bill, how are you?
I think you're on mute.
I must have been on mic and then I muted myself. Anyway, I'm fully vaccinated now.
All right.
Oh, very good. How are you feeling?
Today was second dose day. And, nothing really so far. It's usually on the third day that kind of the side effects start kicking in.
Oh, well, hopefully that won't happen this time.
I've got my fingers crossed, but everybody says, including the people there, that the second round has more impacts than the first.
Oh. Well, the good part is that you're vaccinated. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and probably the federal government and the state government don't even communicate as far as counting the number of people that are vaccinated within the state so that they get that, that full count of all the veterans that are being vaccinated. Yeah, good news on the TV today. It indicated that by July, there will be 300 million doses available for the general public.
Oh, good. That's good news.
How was your day, Jules?
Good, busy. Lots of little meetings here and there. Had a good day. I was up early. I testified on the walks to the legislature this morning. That's the first time I've testified. So I was a little nervous, but it went really well. So I felt it was a good start to the day.
Nice. Well, the mayor's work is never done.
Eventually it is. But you know what? So far it's been pretty fun. I'm enjoying it. I heard you, Sharon.
I wasn't talking to you, Jules.
Oh, too funny.
So Sharon, I'll have to tell you about the time that I met Aretha Franklin when we're not live on YouTube.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Oh, my computer's going to die. Let me-
Peter, it's nice to see you escape the snow.
I made it home just in time to my beach beachfront housing.
It's almost as nice as your fancy office with the rainforest behind you.
Oh yeah. I go back and forth. Those are great.
I want you to be a cat. You have to put the cat filter
I
on.
know.
Oh my gosh.
You're not a cat. That is funny.
Did any of you see what we did on Facebook today? We tried having a little fun with that joke.
No, I missed it.
Okay.
With the cat lawyer joke?
Yeah, we tried spoofing off of that.
Are you
I laughed
serious?
so hard. I laughed so hard. I was crying. That was the best thing I saw all week. Well, I'll have to check out our version.
Going to after this meeting.
Yeah.
The best part is when he says, "I'm not a cat."
I'm not-
I'm not a cat. And it's the eyes that keep.
I know.
Oh, that's classic. Oh. So Jerry, I'm not sure. Will you let me know when we have everybody? I'm not sure who's supposed to be on this call.
We're missing some people.
Yeah.
Fred and Evan, are they not going to be on this?
Fred actually let me know he wouldn't be able to make it tonight.
Oh, okay.
Nikki, is she coming?
I didn't-
No.
People didn't let me know either way.
I emailed Nikki about something and she said she was going to be here tonight. So
Okay.
see.
Cool.
I'll give it just a couple more minutes then to let everybody get signed on.
Oh, I can buy it at Home Depot.
Sounds like somebody's air dusting.
He stopped. Okay. I'll give it another minute or so. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Okay, so I think I'm going to call the meeting to order. If somebody else jumps in, they can just be brought into the meeting. Let's see. Oh, there's Evan. I think. Is that everybody? I think so. All right, so I'm going to call to order a meeting of the Police Oversight Task Force for the City of West Linn for Thursday, February 11th, 2021. We're meeting by WebEx because of COVID-19 precautions. And my dog is here. So first thing I'm going to do is call the roll. He's literally sitting right there barking. Okay. First, we have Kathy Molesky, our city recorder.
Present.
Counselor, excuse me, Counselor Mary Baumgardner.
Present.
Evan Wickersham.
Not a cat.
City Manager Jerry Gabrielatos.
Present.
Christina Garcia Siegel.
Present.
Linda Hamel.
Present.
Nancy Noye. I hope I'm saying that right. Is Nancy here? Oh, there she is.
Present, sorry.
Okay, great, wonderful. Nicole Dawson.
I can't unmute with a space bar apparently, but hi.
Oh, hi. Okay, Acting Chief Peter Mahuna.
I'm present.
Council President Bill Relier.
Good evening, everybody.
Rishi Bansal.
Present.
City Attorney's Office Shannon Lee Erskine.
Present.
And Sharon Furno.
Present.
Excellent. So that's everybody. The first thing we need to do is approve the agenda. So I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. And in these meetings, do we usually call the roll, Kathy, or do we just do they just do a yes, no? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I haven't been involved in these meetings. I wasn't
I-
even sure if
I
I'm
think,
supposed to call everybody. So.
and unless anybody corrects me, I think that's all they do.
Yeah, well, why don't we just do a yay and all opposed nay? Why don't we do that? So all in favor of approving the agenda, say yay.
Yay.
Yeah.
All against approval of the agenda? Okay, so the agenda is approved. The next item of business is public comment. Kathy, do we have any public comment this evening?
We did not have anyone sign up for tonight.
Okay, thank you. And so the next order of business is the legislative briefing, but I don't see Mr. Riggs here yet. Is he on the call?
I just sent him a text asking if he could get here a little early. We had him at 6:15.
Oh, okay.
Should just
Well,
be
so maybe what we can do, Jerry, first of all, I'm sure you noticed that I'm chairing the meeting. The facilitators are not going to be here. So for this meeting, what Jerry and I decided is I would start chairing the meeting, and then at the end of this meeting, we could decide who the chair of your of the task force you choose to move forward to chair meetings in the future. And you can just have a discussion about that if that's something that you want, or if you would prefer to have somebody from the city be the chair. It's up to you. And what else did we discuss, Jerry? There were a couple of other parameters that we were going to walk through.
Yeah, I think we would need a chair. The chair would be working with admin staff, me, Kathy, and or Dylan, but to create an agenda so that we can get it out and kind of work together. That was generally about it. Just formalizing our structure formalizing our structure so we can keep doing work, not what the last proposal from the task force was, but really just to keep this going. If we don't have facilitators, we just need to make some changes so that we can keep working together.
Yeah, so that we just have somebody in charge of the meeting to keep it rolling.
Right.
So we can make that decision at the end of this meeting. And I see that Mr. Riggs is on. Doug Riggs works with the, well, you can introduce yourself, but Doug Riggs has been really helpful. He works with the city to help us on legislative issues that are going on in the legislative session in Salem, making sure that the city is aware of things that we should be focusing on and also testifying for or against. So I will turn it over to Doug. He's going to share with us some of the legislative items that are revolving around police reform right now in Salem. So welcome, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Glad to be here tonight. Glad to be with all of you. For the record, Doug Riggs. And as the mayor mentioned, I work with the city on legislative activities. As an example, we had a hearing this morning on the Willamette Falls Locks Governance Bill, which went very well. So we follow a lot of issues dealing with transportation and the locks and the heritage area. And of course, police reform is a big issue in Salem right now. I did send over earlier today, which I think is now up on the website, a 4-page list of some of the bills that the legislature is considering on police reform and related topics. I'll say that from an overview perspective, we're in a long legislative session, which means that every other year we have a short session and the next year we have a long session. This is the long session, which means it's 150 days. It started 4 weeks ago, and it will go until the end of June, by which time they have to have bills passed and budgets identified. And the legislative leadership tends to set general priorities, kind of overall priorities at the beginning of each session. And police reform this year is one of the 4 or 5 top priorities of both the House and the Senate. So we have seen an avalanche of bills, both in the House and the Senate on these topics. We are at that kind of early stage in the discussion. And so if you look at the list, 4 pages, I probably have, 60 or 70% of the total number of bills that will be introduced. I expect to see at least another 2 pages worth of bills for us to take a look at in future meetings. And the topics are wide ranging, everything from restricting the ability of law enforcement agencies to receive surplus military equipment from the federal government, to the restriction of the use of tear gas and other munitions, to added review of police candidates by the Department of Public Safety and Training, DPSST. And then a few of the things, for instance, I'd point out House Bill 2306, which is on the first page, about 2/3 of the way down, requires cities and police agencies to establish local oversight boards with annual reviews. So what you're doing here today is probably a precursor, and you're probably ahead of the game as far as getting involved in your community. So these are a few of the bills. I figured I'd just talk through some of the process. They're in the process right now of gathering information and holding hearings. Representative Janelle Bynum is the Police Reform Equitable Policing Subcommittee Chair, and she's held 5 hearings so far. They've got more scheduled. It's easy to track. We can send you the link, but you can go to OregonLegislature.gov, and every day you can see a list of hearings that are on that particular day, or you can take a look at hearings committee by committee. But they're meeting every 2 or 3 days and holding fairly detailed hearings, and some people from a variety of communities, including West Linn, have already testified on some of these bills. But they are looking for input. I would say that that is one thing about the Oregon legislature, is they do take input. They want the experience, and they want the input from people in the community who have lived experiences, and they really take testimony to heart and will be willing to make changes. So it's a long process. The House has about another month and a half to go through its bills and then send them to the Senate. The Senate at the same time has about a month and a half to go through their Senate bills and send them over to the House. And then there's about a month and a half at the end of the session where the bills that have gone back and forth are going to a conference committee or can be combined in one way, shape, or form. So it is a participatory process. As you know, the legislative process is taking place not unlike what we're doing tonight, which is via Microsoft Teams or WebEx meetings. But what I found is that it's actually a little easier to get an appointment than in a typical legislative session. Of course, they have to have it by electronic means, but and they're only doing 15-minute meetings, but they are taking meetings. And so if you have an interest in meeting with your local representative or local senator, we can help you get a request in for that kind of a meeting. So I think I'll stop there. I mean, I'm really excited to be able to listen in on some of the discussion tonight. Like I said, we track all of these things, and it's really helpful to know what the community is focused on and the issues that are of paramount importance to all of you. So with that, I think I'll just stop and take any questions about specific bills that might be on the list or the process or how we can help.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Doug? You can raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, Evan.
Hey, Doug, I just wanted to ask who your employer is as a lobbyist, who actually employs you.
I'm employed by the city of West Linn. So my line of responsibility is to respond to the mayor, the council, and the staff, and take direction from them. And of course, they all take direction from you.
Thank you. That's helpful. I wasn't sure if you're a League of Oregon Cities lobbyist or what your standing was. You didn't explain that, so I appreciate it.
That's a good question, and that kind of begs an issue. The League of Oregon Cities is the organization that represents all 184 cities throughout the state, and they have about 7 full-time legislative advocates and lobbyists who work with them. Scott Winkles, who used to work for Senator Ron Wyden, great guy, has been very involved in these issues for a long period of time. I've worked closely with Scott on things like arbitration reform. The city has been behind in supporting reform of the arbitration process for 3 sessions, and finally we got some movement in arbitration reform last summer, and there's another arbitration reform bill up this year. So the league has the responsibility of kind of keeping an eye on things from an overall statewide perspective, and then each of us who works with an individual city has the opportunity to dig down a little more into detail on what impacts the local community.
While we're on the subject, can you tell us a little about the arbitration and reforms that you've advocated for?
Yeah, there has been a long-standing problem, not only in Oregon, but on a national basis, situations, and I'm sure you've discussed it, where an officer will have violated policy, been found guilty of violating that policy by the police agency or by the city, and on a national basis, this is not something that's unique to Oregon. On a national basis, An arbitration system has been set up which allows that determination of violation of policy and also the disciplinary decision to be appealed to an arbitration panel. In Oregon, the arbitration panel tends to be a single arbiter. And in many cases, the arbiter has been an attorney who's worked with the police unions for some period of time. And the cities have always felt that that is not a balanced process. And we have had, time and time, we've seen disciplinary actions taken against individual police officers who violated policy overturned by the arbiter. And in fact, police officers put back on the streets, and these are legally binding decisions. So the bill that we passed in the summer was something that had passed the Oregon House, or passed the Oregon Senate, and been held up in the Oregon House for 3 sessions in a row, so 6 years in a row. Leadership came in the Oregon House and opposed that bill. And after what has gone on in Portland and elsewhere over the last few months, that became really an untenable position in the House for them to block that bill. And so we were able to get a bill passed that essentially leaves in place disciplinary actions if the violation is found to have occurred. So we were having situations where the violation was found to have occurred by the arbitrator, and yet they were overturning a discipline. So they agreed that the egregious action had taken place, but they removed the discipline, and that's not acceptable. So Oregon is moving slightly towards a system that is going to be more protective and insistent that disciplinary actions stick.
I don't think that's a very good characterization of what's happening, to be honest. As someone who's represented unions in arbitrations myself, most arbitrators aren't, in fact, they don't have union experience. I would love that if that was the case as a union attorney who represents unions in arbitrations. And Doug, you might have walked into a minefield without realizing what you just did. But that's just not the case. It's not true. It's true what you just said. I have a real reaction to that. There is a problem, which is that people violate policy and they're not held to account at arbitration, because by and large, the management team on the police unions chooses to, or on the administration side, chooses to pick and choose how they enforce our policies. And what Doug's referring to is that a lot of these things are overturned because they don't uniformly apply the policies. And that's actually the reason why most of these are overturned at arbitration. So one thing I've been advocating for is that teachers in Oregon have what's called the Fair Dismissal Appeals Board. We could do something like that for police, where instead of having arbitration for termination decisions, you could have a statewide statutory-based system that would allow for appeals to go to a board of experts to make a decision about whether or not policy was violated. So I'm going to step back now because I feel like I've been talking too much.
Yeah, Evan, I appreciate that, and I know there's been quite a big debate between the cities and the other parties in this debate over the last few years. So we might disagree over that. I do think that we are going to see arbitration changes, the arbitration process that probably will be someplace in the middle. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I've certainly, had lots of discussions with the police unions about these very same issues over the last 6 years.
Thank you, Doug. I see that Michael Harper has his hand up. Would you like to ask a question, Michael?
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I had a question, Doug. You mentioned something in regards to communities are going to start opening up and having the oversight committees in each individual cities. Can you tell me about where you feel that West Linn is at, and sort of explain where the city of Portland is in regards to budgeting and creation of that task force, and maybe Madam Mayor can follow back up after you finish speaking.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for the question. The bill I referred to is House Bill 2306. There's a corresponding Senate bill as well, and I think that's for something. I'd have to dig that one up. And what this bill would do is it would require local police agencies and cities establish an oversight board. So I'm not really up to speed as much as I should be with what the city of Portland has done. But I think that the goal here is to have a group of citizens who are meeting on a regular basis to provide some civilian oversight to police agencies. And that certainly was the intent when I saw the sponsor testify in this particular bill. I know there are concerns about the lack of specifics in the bill. So my guess is it's going to have to be amended and details are going to have to be worked out. And this is one of those areas where it might be good for this body to take a look at the bill and see how it fits with the vision of this task force.
And Michael, did you have a follow-up question also, or were you looking for a follow-up from me and Jerry?
Yeah, follow up from you and Madam Mayor and Jerry and where we are with our process.
Yeah, that's going to be our next discussion is sort of talking about roles, leadership, scope, where we're moving into. But right now, well, Jerry can fill in too if you have anything. Just go ahead, Jerry.
I don't really have anything to add. I hope to gain some clarity after tonight's meeting.
Yes, I think that's what everybody is looking forward to. So thank you for the question. Does anybody else have a question for Doug? Well, if nobody has a question, I'm not seeing any right now. I just want to say thank you, Doug. I know you've been working really hard. This is a really difficult session because it's virtual, and there are how many bills now? Doug, like 3,000.
Yeah, I think we're up to 3,200 bills.
So Doug combs through all of those and figures out which ones really apply for our city, and then he updates us. We have calls on Tuesdays, and so the ones that he compiled in the document today, please take some time to look at those. And if there's anything that you want to testify on or submit written comment, let us know if you need help doing that. I testified this morning on the locks bill, and it's a very simple process. So, and it's kind of a great way to become involved and feel like you're being heard and participating. So I would highly recommend that to anybody that's interested. And I can, Doug can help. Doug and I can help anybody that wants help doing that. So, but if nobody has any other questions, and Doug, if you have anything else you want to say, you can, or if you're ready to go, you can go. It's up to you.
Thanks, Mayor. No, I think I'll stick around a little bit and listen.
Good.
This is very helpful to me to get up to speed with the kind of discussions you're having and understand what the role of the task force is and hear your views. So if you don't mind, I'll stick around and listen for a little bit.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is clarifying roles, leadership, and scope. So as we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'm chairing today because we no longer have our facilitators, Aaron and Martine, but Jerry and I were thinking perhaps you guys would like to nominate a chair for your group so that you can lead it yourself. I certainly don't want to feel like I'm leading you in this work. I want it to feel, more self-guided. And Jerry can speak to that as well.
Yeah, it would just be helpful from a staff perspective to be able to work with one person to create agendas and set up the meetings.
So before we do that, the other thing we wanted to talk about was scope. So I guess we need to have kind of a robust discussion about what are your priorities, where you want to go from here, how much longer you want to continue to meet, how often, just those basic sort of questions. And so I would open up the floor for any questions or comments now.
I guess I would like the city to tell us exactly what they want us to do. And I guess we go from there. I don't want to get too far outside of what you guys want from us. If it's just establishing what the oversight committee should look like, or how it should be constructed or all of that, then let's talk about that. If there's other things that you want us to discuss or make recommendations on, then tell us that too.
Okay. I think priority one would be to sort of settle on what the oversight entity will look like, so that we can take that to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, but Mr. Schuback was wanting to take that to the bargaining table. So he was hoping to have that sort of wrapped up very shortly, since they're just starting to negotiate ground rules and such right now. So I think that would be priority one. And then from there, I think there's room to discuss other issues that are important to you that that you want to pursue or feel like need to be discussed. Yes, Dr. Dawson.
Hi. So I think that it's great that we'll be together to kind of just define our scope. I know that I came into this tier 2 idea of this is our Doug, for your information. This is kind of our second phase of the work that we started, and we're really trying to refine and flesh out what we're doing or what we're setting up for the next phase, the permanent oversight committee. So I came into this hoping that we could really flesh out like how often are the meetings going to be, how often are people going to be reviewing complaints coming in, because I had a feeling that we would of course initially start with a third party kind of overseer of complaint investigation, but I think we all agreed that we would have both WLPD and task force looking at complaints coming in, as well as a third party independent investigator with expertise reviewing complaints. So I was hoping we could kind of flesh out how often we'd be meeting to discuss those complaints. I personally was very interested in the community harm reduction team. And I'd love to hear from the chief and acting chief Mahuna about, his thoughts on this too. We've talked a little bit back and forth on email, but that's why I came to tier 2, was hoping that there could be some kind of body in place that would be continuing its work in developing a community harm reduction team. So our mental health needs and domestic dispute resolution needs could be met by an alternative non-armed force potentially. So that's why I'm here, and I would love to see if we could continue with kind of fleshing out the scope of that kind of team that could work in collaboration with the WLPD. The cahoots style team is what I'm referring to, Doug. So those two things are really important to me, and I was hoping we can get more clarity on that and see if that would be part of this, the long-term scope. I'm also really interested if we could talk about budget, because we had mentioned wanting to have someone with investigatory expertise on the task force, and having an FTE that's paid to kind of continue this. So I would love if we could talk tonight a little bit about budget, Mayor or Jerry, if you could comment on that.
I can turn that over to Jerry. I know we're starting our budget talks in the next couple of months, but I'm not sure exactly what the plan is as far as an FTE or any of that. I don't think we've begun to look at those numbers. So, Jerry, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. So a couple of things. I took down 3 notes while you were talking. As far as the frequency of meetings, I think that's something that we can talk about. I'm okay. If the group is okay, I'm continuing on a meeting twice a month, so that we can continue the work. It's just a matter of setting that up. Understood. And I saw some email traffic about the Kahoot style team that Acting Chief Huna can chat about. And then as it relates to budget and FTE, I think one of the things that we should discuss as a group is the amount of complaints that we receive and whether or not how to right size an FTE for something like that. I don't know how much we discussed some of the complaints that we've gotten in previous meetings. I can't recall. I'm sorry, but it would be something where we'd have to evaluate how much work there is and see if it would require an FTE.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the number was like 10 or less per year, correct, of complaints. So I don't know if that would merit a full-time staff person, but you know, maybe a contractor, and but we'll have to look at the numbers and figure all of that out. You know, like the OIR group we hired out, and I thought they did a great job with investigation. So I'm not sure what model we would look at if we were to be using outside services like that. But I will turn it over to Acting Chief Mahuna to share his thoughts on that and also about the Kahoot style model program, if he doesn't mind.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine. What I know a little bit about the Cahoots thing. I made some phone calls to some chiefs in the area and asked them about it. I have a call in to Chief Skinner down in Eugene, but he hasn't called me back yet. So what I've learned so far is that is a completely community-based entity that was started 25, 30 years ago. Incredibly successful, but everybody doesn't feel like we would be able to replicate. That's not a plug and play model. That thing's been so refined and developed down there. And there's such great community support for that. Tons of people that are participating in that. That's not something we can just implement right away up here. Just too many moving pieces for a plug and play. But that's not saying that we couldn't work towards something like that over time. And they like I said, they've been developing that for 25 years. I am supportive of a mental health component. Working with the WOPD, I got some irons in the fire on that. Intentionally being vague on that for other reasons because I don't want to spoil any work that we're doing. So I'm totally supportive of that. How this board is, how often they meet and what they do and who's going to do investigations, really is going to, in my opinion, right, it needs to be borne out as to we need to back up and say, okay, well, how big is this board? How many people are going to be on it? Then we can start defining who's going to do the scope of work. There's just, you know, like the mayor said, we get in the last several years, since about 2013, we get about 8 to 10 complaints a year. Is this a board that would meet every month, only when we got a complaint that came in, and stuff like that? But I think we need to get back to the bones of what this thing's going to look like. I'm completely supportive of citizen involved police oversight, and I think it's a must. I think the communities around the country have spoken, and I'm a fan of it. So it helps with transparency and accountability, and getting rid of the good old boy system and covering stuff up. And so I am 100% with that. But I'm still waiting to hear like how you guys are going to come up with what this thing looks like, and what, if any, role the WLPD will be allowed to play within this board. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Acting Chief Mahuna. I would like to say, first, I think it would be great if we could continue at least a monthly meeting. I think, you know, the complaints are just one piece of it. I think there are many other pieces that we'd like to address. Like we had talked about officer wellness and how we can, you know, set up some kind of system to make sure our officers are getting their needs met for stress reduction as part of an overall harm reduction, right? For all players involved. So I think there's that, and then I understand completely that the Cahoots model of a community harm reduction team would take a long time to stand up. And so I think that would require frequent check-ins and trying to attract experts in that background in mental health care and medical backgrounds to help participate. I think it's going to take a lot of effort and work, and so I think it would be in our best interest to be meeting as a group of, say, 7 or 13 people, probably twice a month, to see how we can get feelers out into the community to drum up interest in the Kahoot style model. And then I think there's, there are the complaints that are filed, and then there are also the complaints that don't get filed. There's a team that you're involved in, right? Building bridges, and I've met people through that building bridges who do have complaints that haven't been filed. But I think if we keep a liaison on this board, and we keep communication open with someone from the WLPD, I think that would be really important, and like helping to create a more open atmosphere so we can actually get stuff addressed if it needs to be addressed. So I'm thinking back in my mind about Rishi's experience and other people's experience with hate crimes. Those didn't get reported necessarily. So I think there are definitely ways we can improve our reporting. More complaints might be filed if people feel more comfortable that something might happen in response to those complaints. So those are just my 2 cents. I'll stop talking now. I'll follow Evan's lead and let someone else do the talking. Thanks.
I'll just chime in there that the creation of this board, I absolutely agree with you, Nikki, that if it's a safe space and it's not within the police department, that more people may absolutely come forward, and we could have triple the complaints, who knows? But you're absolutely right.
Anybody else have some, and thank you, Nikki, that was great. And does anybody else have some follow-up thoughts on that? So I heard that, perhaps meeting at least monthly, perhaps 7 to 13 people on this board commission. Does anybody else have thoughts on those? Does everybody agree with that, or do they have something else in mind? Sharon?
I think 7 is a good number. I think if you start getting over that, there's too many people. And this is a small town. We have a small police department. So I was thinking 7. I think 7 is a good number.
I agree. I was also thinking 7. For now, I would love if we could continue to meet twice a month, not just once a month.
So maybe like two times a month at the beginning, and then phasing into once a month, and see how that goes. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody disagree on the number 7? Does that somebody else have something in mind?
I don't know. Hello?
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah. I don't know if 7 is a good or bad number. I'm wondering if I can't back up just a little bit. As I'm listening, I'm thinking that tell me if I'm wrong, our primary goal would be to continue looking at a solid oversight model, given with the new bill that's come forward and the OIR report. So to take a look at, if not Nicole, I have not found anything better than Nicole, but I'm thinking that we need to look at their model. Eugene is using them. And then the possibility, I'm wondering with 7, if we might have a chair and subcommittees that take in between meetings, these little subcommittees can get together and look into, that would be not a quorum, of course. And that way they could bring forward to our larger meeting with what they found out. I've tried to, from what I understand for example, I'm not saying Nicole, but for example, what you have to do is submit a request to invite the trainer to, they're so busy right now, you can't just call them. So what you do is invite them, and then they will have a trainer come to your Zoom meeting and present what they do. The same thing for Nicole. if we might have a subcommittee that would talk to them, and then they can bring that information forward to us. I'd like to see experts in the field gives presentations to the oversight committee so that we can form a solid oversight committee. That seems to be our primary goal, is the oversight committee. The second piece then, once we establish that, then we can look at how we can bring forward a cahoots model, you know, and all the other pieces like that. But I think our primary goal is to answer the concerns in the OIR report and address that first and foremost. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks for the time.
Okay, that's great. So can I ask you, Linda, were you wanting to have that presentation now, like at the next meeting, or would you like us to do some outreach and get find different, different oversight entities and have suggestions from them on how they're modeled, or
I guess I could ask Doug Riggs. So here's this bill coming forward. Do you have, besides Nicole, which Lonnie had researched and brought forward, besides Nicole, can you give us some examples of other oversight committees? Not now, accreditation is different.
We don't
My
have a lot of that in
understanding.
Oregon yet. He's a lobbyist.
Oh,
Like,
I'm sorry.
He hasn't done this, Linda.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say, Evan, I can just say that the bill is very short. The bill is a single paragraph long right now. It doesn't have a lot of details, and it's not something that Oregon has done in the past. We've not required public citizen oversight boards. The Oregon Association of Police and Sheriff's Officers testified and pointed out that there have been examples in the past, and every police organization has oversight, but not an awful lot of kind of citizen oversight boards. And
Okay.
as I said, the bill is very early in the process and would need to be fleshed out.
Okay.
Honestly, those of us who've done the research on this committee have more expertise than all the lobbyists in Oregon. They haven't dealt with this. It's new to Oregon.
Continue. Yeah. Sorry, Evan. If I guess I should have asked you then.
No,
okay,
you can ask yourself. I mean, we've been grappling with this more so than anyone else has in the state. Like, I think we're ahead of a lot of people outside the people who are having the same discussion in Portland. It's no dig on Doug or any other lobbyist. It just hasn't been an issue in the legislature or otherwise. Like here, or anywhere else for that matter. Like police reform is in its infancy in terms of meaningful reforms that actually have some kind of teeth to them. It's not happening outside of a few places around the country. So we're on the cutting edge of that in a lot of ways. It's not anyone's fault that they haven't done that because it hasn't been grappled with. All I would say is that I don't have any particular opinion about how many people. It would be nice if it's smaller. But I think that the real issue is, do we have expertise on the committee? Do we have people of color who've grappled with this issue in their day-to-day life? That's more important to me than the number of people. I would like, if it meant having a larger committee so that we could have more people of color, that's more important to me than having the right expertise, quote unquote, on the committee. And I just think, I think it's a right question for Jerry and others to bring up because he's got to grapple with the budget, as does the mayor. Can we fund an FTE for this? I don't know, but we could have a static budget in order to contract with people to perform investigations, to do the basic functions of the committee, and to advise us. I think what all of us agreed on in our discussions was that it would be independent of the city, meaning that it would be apart from the city, apart from the police department, because I think we all agree that police, not just in West Linn, but everywhere, have proven they can't police themselves. That, there's been statements in our own city about Captain Rowland investigation and other things, and they just were inadequate. And no offense, city manager, Jerry, I just don't think it's adequate. That was not an adequate investigation. To put anything in the press that said that it was, I think is undermines the work we're doing here. That was not an adequate investigation. I think we all see that on its face. And so what we really need is some independent body with a budget to be able to actually have some pushback on that. So we have some accountability to the community about these things. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Evan. I just want to take a time out for a moment and just acknowledge that this conversation is it's a tough one, and it's a difficult conversation oftentimes, but it's very important to me that we stay respectful with each other. So if everybody could just keep that in mind when we're addressing each other, I would appreciate it.
That's fine. So is it disrespectful to have an honest conversation about something that's happened? I think when we're talking about racism and we're talking about police accountability, to be able to have a call in the room is a respectful conversation. So call me out if I'm wrong about that, but I think when we're saying that what happened in Westland's okay and the investigation was okay, to me, that's just calling us in to have a conversation about, are we really accountable to the community for saying that? I just want to hang that up.
I think I'm not saying that, Evan. I mean, did everybody
I'm
else hear it
asking
that
because
way?
that's how I heard it. That's all.
Okay, well, that's different than perhaps what my intent was. So if you want me to clarify my intent, I'm just saying this is a public meeting and there are decorum rules that are important. And yes, I understand how difficult this work is, and I just want to make sure that we can do it together well, and respectfully. So, I apologize if that sounds like I'm discouraging important conversation. That's not my intent.
Well, no, I don't. I think that's great. I appreciate the feedback. I would like if you could speak explicitly to what you mean, because I don't really understand. So what is it that you're saying or asking?
That we are polite with each other, engage within our decorum rules of the city council when we're in public meetings.
I commit to doing that. I think I'm doing that. So I just need to be told if I'm not doing that. I'm just having
Okay. And I know there's a level of frustration too, because I know you guys met and then there was a gap and we're meeting again and we're trying to get this schedule put together in a way that works for everyone. So I know there's frustration and I acknowledge that. And I can promise you that I've been, working hard behind the scenes to make sure that we're getting these meetings together and that we get this entity together and in place. And as far as I'm concerned, that's been the goal from the get-go, and I'm really anxious to do that in a way that works so we can solve the problems that we've been having with our police department.
Well, I just want to say again, I think it's a fair thing to put in the room that was not a good investigation. I don't think that's a decorum issue. I just think
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I wasn't speaking to that. What I was saying was, I think you could be a little more respectful to Mr. Riggs. I think, perhaps with, I think there's just a way that you can be, I don't know. I think we're all here for the same reason, and it's important to everybody.
Take the bull by the horns a little bit, but I'm gonna, like I said, step back. Sharon had her hand up.
Sharon.
Mayor Walters, I have a comment. So Mr. Wickersham has mentioned that he would like to seek an independent group with budget and oversight accountability. It almost sounds like he would like to create a department. And I think if we go down that road, we have to start thinking about how do we get there? Because right now, the city manager is the one that manages the police department. And the city council, through managing the performance of the city manager, has the opportunity to address what is happening within the police department but we don't have direct control over the police department. So we would need to have a change in our charter that would allow that type of entity to exist. I don't think it's something that the council has the authority to, at least working within our charter, to enact through some kind of legislative process. I think we have the ability um, to work with the parties to create a task force that works with the city manager and works with the police department to address a couple of different issues. One is going to be policy, practice, and procedure, and the other is perhaps disciplinary. But when we start going into the disciplinary field, that might have to be a subgroup of the group that is made up of police department entities, human resource entities, city manager entity, a city council entity, and all of that then has to be negotiated with the union because we're introducing a whole new process for working with police officers who, let's say the first group who reviews policy, practice, and procedure finds that there is police misconduct, and then they make recommendation to the other group for disciplinary action. So all of that has to be considered as part of the overall process.
Sharon, you had your hand up first.
Well, I think we should just stick to right now, maybe just talking about the construction of the oversight committee that's going to be permanent and talking about what we want to see on that board, who we want to see from where, if we want them to be bringing any special qualifications, any particular experience. Do we want the board to be, you know, if possible from West Linn, if possible, people of color. But don't forget, you know, we have a relatively small percentage of people of color. Jerry and I have talked about this. And when you know, we have a small percentage of people of color. From that small percentage of people of color, we can assume that only a very small percentage of those people are going to even want to be part of anything like this. So I don't want it to be, I don't want us to get hung up on making sure that there's the majority of people of color. And I just want us to get to the nuts and bolts of who we want on this committee, because until we figure that out and establish what it should look like, I don't think we can talk about anything else. And I don't think that Evan's talking about forming a department within the city. I don't want to speak for you, Evan, but I don't think that that's what he's talking about. So I don't think that's what any of us are talking about. I don't know that this committee needs a huge budget. I don't know. I don't think we need a full-time person. Because like we said, we've got 10 complaints a year. That's not very many. That's less than one a month. And any investigator with a grain of common sense and ability will be able to get through those very quickly, unless it's a major, major thing like the Fesser case, which hopefully never happens again. But in that case, I think you'd be looking at a completely different person or agency to contract with. So I just want to get back to making the board and focusing on what we want that board to look like. That's it.
Thank you. Christina.
So I'm going to agree with Sharon that it was also not my understanding that we were recommending a whole department. It was just for an independent investigator. Again, wouldn't have to be full-time considering the size of our city and the amount of complaints that there are annually. I do disagree that we should not prioritize people of color for this board. That's very important to me.
Baumgartner.
Thank you, Mayor, and I appreciate being a guest and being allowed. I won't speak long, but I just wanted to suggest, since we are entering a budget cycle, the possibility of having some discretionary amount of money, not an FTE, but just opening up that possibility that we could maybe discuss that during our budget discussions as a solution potentially for this issue of having external investigations.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. Thank you, Councilor Baumgardner. And now I forgot what I was going to say. What was the first thing that you said, Mary?
Oh boy, what did I say first?
It's been a long day.
It was just about the only thing I've been really hearing that seemed to cause a momentary glitch in the flow of this meeting was the discussions about how to conduct external investigations and how that would be done. And so that's really the only thing I think I talked about.
Okay. And I also, if I may say, I think that, you know, if we can come up with the entity of this the structure of this oversight entity, then we can talk about the money, right? Because we don't even know what we're talking, how much this would cost is, so we need to really, in my opinion, it would be great to have the task force really start to focus in on that. And then the other pieces will fall in place as we go through budget cycle. So does anybody else have any questions or comments? Michael.
Yeah, I was, I guess I don't want to be like Evan and share some thoughts, but our oversight committee should be based upon the city of West Linn and the mayor's office in regards to where she wants the city to be directed, with the support of the police chief. I'm hearing that if there's not and I think there has been a meeting at the city level where you want to approve that this committee can exist, and then if the chief will buy into it, it's easier to move forward with what we're trying to do. This committee was started based upon an issue that was racially motivated. Um, I don't think none of us on our committee talked about having specific races on a committee. We talked about diversity. I've been in West Linn for 40 years, and yeah, we may not have the numbers, but we have the people, and we are a diverse community that love one another, but need to make sure that the police department is as compliant when it comes to we as citizens live, work, and play in West Linn. So I'd like to see if the city council approves this committee, it would be easier for us to go forward along with the support of the police chief, because I'll throw something out there. I don't believe the police chief in any way, when we have today, will do something that will affect the culture of our community. So if it's something that the mayor can discuss, and our city leaders that are on this meeting can approve, we can pretty much go forward. But it's about us as a diverse community, wanting to make sure that our children and our homes are protected. I don't want to have a house that someone throw egg at, and then I got to get upset, and then I go out and hurt somebody, which never happened to me. But again, it's still important that if you, Mayor, want us to put this committee together, we need to hear from you 100%. If we can find the money, we can take some money out of the chief's budget for a couple cups of coffee. So money's not a big issue. But I think Evan said something that's really important. If we want to get to the area where we're talking about working with unions and things like that, we got to focus this committee as a professional organization and not just a community group.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate that. And I think, you're exactly right. And the whole goal of this, I think, for the council from the get-go was to make sure that everybody feels safe and welcome in West Linn. And so I stick by that. That is my ultimate goal. but I will let other counselors speak too. If Counselor Baumgartner, do you want to share your thoughts?
Well, I do agree that the importance of this, the existence of this task force is to represent the community's wish to never again have the incidents, not just Michael Fesser, but certainly what happened with Mr. Fesser. But there is racism in this community, and it's not all having to do with the police department, but I'm afraid we just have to admit that. And now what are we going to do? Move forward. So this is an important group of people, and I don't know what the right makeup of people on the task force is, but I think having the potential for external investigations when necessary is important, and accountability and transparency, and whatever this task force wants to do with those issues, I'm supportive of. Thank you.
Council President Relier, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I guess I'm just more of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. So when we start talking about having a budget, then we need to ask the city manager and the finance director, how do we allocate those dollars? And then once we start allocating those dollars, we have to understand who's managing those dollars. And so there's some overlapping statements being said here about this group wants to be an independent group with no oversight by the city, and yet public dollars require oversight by somebody. So we have to be able to identify these issues and then find a way that we can work with city manager and the finance director, as well as this group, as well as our legal counsel, to figure out, well, how do we get there? And I think we're talking around a lot of issues, but we're not talking about how to get there. So I would appreciate if we could focus more on how to get there.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing as a takeaway is for Jerry and the council to meet with our finance director and have some discussions about funding, and then bring that back to you in our next meeting. And perhaps in the meantime, we could continue working forward on what the structure of this entity will look like, so that we at least can, have an estimate of what type of funding, fiscal, contributions would help. Does that sound right to you, Jerry? Okay, thumbs up. Okay, so let me make a note of that. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody.
Nicole has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, hi, and I also noticed that Evan has his hand up, so I'll get off quickly.
You know what? They're not showing up on my panel, but maybe because I'm not the host. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to ask Councilor Relier, sir, do you think it would be easier at this kind of at our nation stage to say if we wanted to get extra help from an outside source, as Linda was mentioning, like with like a third party NACOL representative coming in to give us some training about setting up an oversight committee that would be permanent in a very effective way, an efficient way. It would be nice to have some external expertise for that. Would we just kind of, as a one-off, request that financial assistance to be able to bring them in from Jerry, or like if we don't have any kind of budget allotted, maybe we could just piecemeal be able to fund an external investigator if something comes up for a police complaint investigation or for this kind of training? Is that what would be kind of like a workable solution in the meantime?
So I think the first step is we need to get the council to pass some kind of legislation, if you will, that officially recognizes this group. And in order to get there, we need to know how many people you want to have in the group so that we can, in a public meeting, say, we've created a group. It consists of X amount of bodies made up of X amount of types of citizens. That's our first step. And then that group would then submit some kind of a budget request or some kind of a, if you will, a business plan to the city manager to say, here are the outside services, contracted services that we need in order to help our business or our entity or our group become as efficient as it possibly can be. So now through that business plan, we start creating goals and objectives, and we have a budgetary chain to follow on how those dollars are being used. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
So we just talked about numbers. So, you know, is 7 the number that you're interested in? What I'm hearing is, you know, those numbers, make sure there's great representation of, you know, diverse, a great diverse representation on the oversight entity, which I highly agree with. And also know that, you know, it's open to public comment, so we can have members of the community come in and share their firsthand experiences as well. I think is would be really helpful. Evan, let me call on you and let you speak. I'm sorry your hand has been up so long.
It fell asleep, so we're good. I didn't even notice it was up anymore. So I would say if we did something like no less than 7, no greater than 9, we might find a sweet spot. I would echo what I heard Christina say, which is that I think we should center people of color on the committee and then balance it with other people if they're not people of color, because we can find people of color who have expertise in labor negotiations, employment law, in policing, you know, people like Sharon who are professors and who have expertise in policing. And that's all I got to add.
So,
Jules?
Yeah, go ahead.
You guys, I don't want you to think that I don't think it's important for people of color to be on the board. I just don't want us to pigeonhole ourselves into making it a requirement that they are people of color if we can't find those people who are willing and able to serve on the board.
I'm not hearing you that way. Don't worry about that. For me, at least.
I think we should talk about what we want these people to bring to the board. Are we going to require certain levels of expertise? Who's putting them on the board? What's the application process? What's the whole process for getting on the board, for getting off the board? What's the terms of being on the board? I think that's what we need to really get down to and focus on. And then we can, you know, go from there. But like, what do we want these people to look like? Do they need to be from West Linn?
Sharon, I'm sort of taking offense. What do you mean these people?
These people on the board.
Madam Mayor, it's just getting sort of uncomfortable for me, for Sharon, for you to continue to speak the way you are. If you can sort of tone it down. When we were selected to be on the first part of this board, it was about a diverse group. I think you're the only one talking about these people. So I'm personally I just getting, if you can just tone down a little bit, we're okay here in West Linn, okay? So sort of, we're not,
well, I'm not,
I don't see where you're coming, you're coming hard.
I'm not sure what you're getting at when I say these people. I mean the people. Can I speak?
Yes.
When I say these people, I mean, what do we want these people who are going to sit on this oversight board to bring to the table, to look like? Where do we want them to live? So that's what I mean when I'm referring to these people. I mean, are we going to make it so that nobody from outside of this town can be on this oversight committee? Are we going to make it that nobody other than people of color can sit on this oversight board? Are we going to make it that nobody has to have any sort of expertise or education or relevant experiences to law and things like Evan has mentioned, policing? Are we just going to, who's going to appoint them? How are they getting on? Those are the things that we need to work out.
We didn't talk, this board was primarily selected by the city. You just make me sort of feel uncomfortable with the way we got here. And you were on this committee. I don't understand. With you on the committee, are you a part of these people? It's just sort of
Okay,
I
you're
don't.
getting hung up. You're getting hung up on the language of these people. I meant the people on the oversight board.
You're
That's
on the
what I'm
oversight
referring
board.
to.
We
No,
are
we're not on
currently
the oversight board. This is a task force. I'm talking about the permanent entity, not this.
so
Not this one. This isn't permanent.
we just started phase 2. So, Madam Mayor, if you can, address how, these in regards to membership to this task force will be selected, I would just feel more comfortable with the term "these people."
Yes, thank you, Michael. And I'm sorry if you're feeling uncomfortable. It's not my wish for anybody to feel uncomfortable in this group. And I'm sure it sounded like Sharon didn't intend it the way it sounded, may have sounded. So, but I totally acknowledge that that it does feel very uncomfortable for you. So I'm sorry about that. Moving forward, I would think that, okay, I just sort of lost my thoughts for a moment. Jerry, you want to jump in?
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to ask Peter to speak about a group that he and I have been talking about, because one of the things that he and I have been talking about since this started, or since I started, was what could the model be? And Peter reached out to one of the AUSAs, and Peter, if you could talk about that in the call that we have upcoming, I think that would be helpful for the group. I wanted to put it into an email to the group, and I just forgot, but Peter's here now, so if you wouldn't mind, Peter.
Sure, put me on the spot, no big deal. So yes, we were contacted by the U.S. Attorney's Office downtown, and asked us to consider looking at the CRITAC, to request assistance from the CRITAC. And so CRITAC stands for the Collaborative Reform Initiative, CRI, and then we ask for it from the Technical Assistance Center, which is TAC. It's run by the COPS office. You have to make a request to your local U.S. Attorney's Office. If your application is accepted, then they come in and provide all of the technical assistance, if you will, for free. So that's super awesome. There's a variety of things that we can ask for help with, and the list gets bigger every day. But everything from, anything, literally anything to do it. You could ask them how to start a brand new police department from the ground up, and they would bring in people from around the country to help you do that. De-escalation training, crisis intervention training, use of force, oversight, all kinds of stuff. And so I would invite you to, if you have a few minutes, to look up at CRITAC, CRITAC, and out of the Department of Justice. It is not, as you know, like a lot of cities around the country are under a consent decree or something like that from the Department of Justice. This is not that. It is a collaborative issue program where we work with them. There's no like court or legal hammer. They just want to, if you reach out for help and want to get better at it, they will help you do that for free. And so explore those options. You can see there's like 2 big lists of things that they currently offer assistance with. Dr. Dawson, did you have your hand up for a question?
Yeah, I was just curious if you did you actually invite them in to address any specific parts? I just out of curiosity.
So that is, we were meeting with the AUSA next week to establish how that works. We have to formally request it. We're meeting with Jared Hager. He's the AUSA we're working with. So we haven't made the official request yet, but we're going to go over the process of what that looks like next week. So early stages. I don't have a time frame for you, but I'm assuming departments around the country are also going to, they're also applying for help from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the COPS grant. But the fact that the U.S. Attorney's Office asked us if we wanted to do that, they saw the need, and I'm assuming they're going to accept our application. I don't see why they wouldn't, since they asked us to apply for it. So.
Evan, I see your hand up. Do you have a comment or a question? Okay, I'm hearing none. Rishi?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I think the dysfunction everyone is experiencing right now is because we have not been given the opportunity to meet and get our shit together. And that's why I think Michael's confused about what's the permanent task force, what's tier 2, and we haven't been able to discuss amongst our group who we're going to nominate as a co-chair and a chair. So that's why it's looking like this right now, and there's no agenda.
Okay, thank you for those comments. If you want to move on to clarifying roles, we can do that. Is everybody wanting to move to that part now to establish a chair? And okay, let's go ahead and do that. Does anybody want to nominate somebody to be the chair of the committee, of the task force?
I'd like to nominate Sharon if she's still up for it.
No, thank you.
So Sharon has said no, thank you. Does anybody else have another nomination?
Well, I would ask, is Rishi or Michael interested in chairing?
I'm not, thank you.
No, but I'd like to nominate Nicole.
No, I
No.
just serve as a liaison through the tier 2 process.
I'm sorry, Nicole, I didn't hear you.
I'd be open to serve as that. I think we're looking at the tier 2 kind of liaison while we're kind of in this process of setting it up. I mean, I'll be at all the meetings. It's fine.
Okay. Excellent. That's great. Do we have any other nominations? Okay, so does somebody, Evan, your hand is up?
I think it's been up for hours. I'm just going to take it down.
If you have something that you want to say, you're welcome to say.
No, I'm good. I think nominating Nicole is fantastic, and I support it.
I'll second Nicole.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a vote. So if you're in favor of Nicole being the chair, say aye.
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 Any nays? It's unanimous that Nicole will be the chair of the Oversight Task Force. And so I can hand this meeting over to her now, or I can stay on, or whatever you would prefer.
Well, I think we still have plenty to get done. So I think both of us would want to go in the same direction as now we would need to figure out how many people we want to say are going to be on the task force. So We've previously discussed kind of I think all of us felt it to be somewhat of an arbitrary number, but 7. And most of us kind of went round robin and said 7 would be okay. I didn't hear any strong nays, but again, I think Evan said, it's more important to discuss kind of the who. So if we could just kind of get a number out there, we wanted to say 7, no less than 7, no greater than 9. Are we all in agreement on that? If anyone would say, oh, I see Christina has a comment there.
So I think I was confused when we were talking about that number earlier. I thought that we were talking about the recommendation for the permanent oversight board. So if we're talking about the tier 2 board, then I'm open to discussion around that.
I think we are the tier 2 people already. So we're kind of already in, I think this is we're talking about the permanent at this point.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with raising my hand. I can't find the button. I apologize to everyone. I'm really having a terrible time. So where do I find the raise? May I just back up discussion?
Sure.
May I invite NACAL, some representative, to come and speak and tell us what an oversight committee looks like? Because as I read their document, from 2000, it's called, let me pull it up here. I'm reading this document. The Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement Assessing the Evidence. It's a data-driven justice solutions. It's put out by NACAL, and they go into it in quite detail. And there's a number of communities that have implemented, one being Eugene. And to Mr. Rael, I'm sorry, it's been a long day and I'm having trouble with pronunciation. To Councilman Railea, they might be able to say what kind of budgets we're looking at, because we really don't know. We're going into a realm of we don't know. The OIR has made recommendations. When we started the task force, we were defining the outcome from my notes I'm looking here. Analyze current structure systems and recommend policy and procedure reforms, and propose an oversight entity for the police department. And NACAL was brought up, and I think if we can take a look at that, if it doesn't look like it fits for us, then we can move on to something else. But I would like to invite an entity like Nicole to come and speak to us and let us know how these work. I'm starting to repeat myself. May I do that? I'm asking permission. It was the same thing, like cahoots down the road. You have, in this COVID thing, it's hard. You can't just call and talk to somebody. You have to go on their website, invite them. And so I'm asking for permission from the group.
I think wonderful, Linda, if you don't mind reaching out, and just if you wouldn't mind using Dropbox maybe to kind of check in with us, or I'm not really sure. I guess at this point, it'd be great to know how we can communicate with each other. If we can continue just with Dropbox, then that'll work. And you could let us know the time frame that they'll be able to come and talk with us.
Sure.
I'm very much in support.
Okay. As long as I can get Fred to come and help me with the Dropbox, I'm still, it's just.
You can always communicate with the city manager or me, and we can share with the rest of the group.
I just want to add a comment. I mean, I've noticed that we lost Sharon, who's a voice of law enforcement officers, someone who's served as law enforcement officer. She left the meeting. We've lost Rishi, a person of color, who I'm just going to assume both of them got frustrated and left the meeting. I'm feeling dominated by city council, that we're not really being left to be able to make decisions and to actually deliver to you what you've asked us to do by both Councilor Alea and the mayor. So I just want to put that out there. I think, you know, this meeting's getting smaller as it goes on. Are you guys really committed to this work? Just want to put that out there.
I am absolutely committed to this work.
You don't mind me saying too, if I can speak to that, Evan, I'm also concerned because I very much value both Rishi's and Sharon's voices so much, but we don't really know why necessarily they left. They may have been frustrated, but I think it is important. Like, we came into this meeting saying, let's find someone who can continue in figuring out an agenda and putting an agenda out there and getting meetings scheduled. So I mean, I think we just kind of went to that stage where we said how many people are going to ideally be on the oversight committee and who's going to be kind of acting as a liaison to figure out the agendas. I mean, I can't really speak to like if someone's irritated with that process or not. I'm certainly happy to reach out to both of those really important voices to see if we can include them, but we'll have to do that after the meeting. I don't really think I'm like a great chairperson. I'm sorry. I need to like figure out how to facilitate a meeting. But I see Council President Millier's hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. So for those that asked the question, maybe if your interface is having a problem finding the hand raise button, down on the bottom, you should have a panel, should say mute, unmute, stop video share, and then a smiley face where it says reactions. And if you press on that tab, within that, at the top of the bar comes a lower or raise hand option, you know, as well as the other icons that are there. So I just wanted to assist with those that might be having an issue finding the raise hand. And then, you know, Evan's comments about he feels overshadowed somehow by the council members being present in this meeting. I'm not sure why he feels that way, and why he's asking if council is committed to this. The whole purpose council created the task force is because we are committed to working with the citizenry to work through the issues and then understand what the issues are so that we can use our skills to bring in the resources necessary in order to make this task force and the future task force successful. And there are a lot of barriers. There's legal barriers, there's monetary barriers, and there's union barriers. So we're breaking ground in new territory that the police department, I believe, really needs to be integrated in the process. And I think we're better off working in a collaborative manner rather than trying to constantly raise this statement about we need to be some kind of independent entity with no collaboration amongst other members of the public. I'm just a normal citizen. Just because I was asked if I wanted to run for office and chose to do so doesn't take away my status as being a member of the citizenry here that's interested in police reform.
Okay, so I got a comment on that. Thank you, Councilor Riley. I appreciate hearing that. I see, Jerry, I will step aside for you, Jerry. I have something to say, but I will, as city manager, if you want to speak, go ahead.
No, please. I was following up on something else.
No, I appreciate it if you go first. That'd be great. Thanks.
Oh, Dr. Dawson, I think you and I are supposed to meet tomorrow, and I'm happy to help with setting up meetings and going through all of that. We're here to serve. So.
And I see Linda's hand is up too. Linda, do you have something to add?
I just wanted to say, I'm just going back over this, and I think some of the confusion has been, Jerry came on late in the game. When I'm looking over the notes, we were supposed to meet in the beginning of July, and we were supposed to meet for 6 months. And it got delayed, and so help me out. I think our very first meeting was September, 23rd? So we got a really late start. And then the holidays hit, and we were under pressure. What I don't understand why we were under pressure to come up with something by the end of the year. And so here we were, right in the middle of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and we're supposed to have something. And to Rishi and to Evan and to Michael's point, we have not been together as an entity, and we need to talk with one another. We've never had a chance without the facilitators and all, and I think we've got a good start here. To be disagreeable is not be disrespectful, and I think we've got a good start here. And it would be good to have a meeting where the group can talk amongst each other, and I would invite council to attend, but let us talk to one another. We haven't had that chance to talk to one another. So that's my 2 cents. I respect everybody's opinion on this committee. I've been really impressed with their knowledge, but I do think we need to bring on professionals. So for us to go out, interview, bring them on, get their insight, and then we can bring something forward to council like we were supposed to. And then, but budget things, let's find out how much it costs before we even worry about how much it costs. Thank you. I'll stop.
I just want to say before I go, because I have to go, I feel undermined in the work before it happens by the city council. I feel like they're really, I feel like there's a foot being put down by the city council. They don't want this work to happen. I feel like that's the message that's being sent to me as someone who wants to work on police reform. And that, you know what? I mean, that's clear. I think that's why you saw a couple of people left this meeting. That's why they're texting me and telling me the same thing. I'm seeing it from the city manager's office on their statements on Captain Rollins and his conducting of that investigation and support for it. And that's the way we're receiving this. And I'm wondering whether I even want to participate in this committee.
Well, Evan, I would love to have that conversation with you because that's not how I feel at all.
I think it is important to have the conversation too about what is, okay for us to communicate about. I personally felt very stymied between when we stopped December 30th and then we had the brief meeting with city council. Maybe it was like the last week of January or something. I can't remember exactly when it was. But it has been very difficult to function as a group with these new limitations placed on us. I'm not saying that it's not impossible. I think we just need to learn how to work around the obstacles that are just kind of in place with having a group of people meeting and talking and brainstorming. There are lots of obstacles to that, and we need to persevere. I think this is where the work, it's hard, but we need to do it. And if we let the rules about how we meet and how many people need to be there and if it's visible to the public, if we let all that get in the way, I'm getting emotional. This work has to be done. And I'm not gonna walk out. And I don't think Sharon or Rishi are gonna walk out. I think they're gonna come back, but this work has to be done now. So let's figure out how to get ourselves together and talk through it, collaborate, and make our community safer for everyone, even though it's annoying. Even though it might take longer than 6 months. Oops, 3 months. Oh, maybe 6 months. I mean, we're going to get it done. So thank you for all of you for hanging in there. And let's just keep doing it, even though it's uncomfortable, even though we're sitting in meetings and it's probably not according to city decorum to cry. But this is hard work and all of us need to do it.
If I may, just for a moment, please. Thank you for saying that, Nicole. And I've been involved in a lot of activism, and movements go through hard times because this is, just like you said, this work is so important and it's hard. And I heard people who I think were misunderstanding each other, and I'm not blaming anybody. It's just how communication works. Sometimes someone speaks in a way that doesn't hits you wrong, but you are all so important, and this work is so important. So, and I want to do anything that I can. And this isn't, I'm not against the police either. This is about all of us learning how to be together and help each other. And whatever we can do on council, I don't know what the budget, I haven't even studied much of the budget, but I want to find, if we can, some budget to, like you said, we don't know what the cost will be, but this is important. I can't think of anything honestly more important to spend money on in this moment right now than this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baumgartner. So I think if we could comfortably say at this point, can we decide on when our next meeting is going to be? Every 2 weeks, if that seems okay with everyone, so at least we get some kind of regularity. And then we'll hear back from Linda on maybe some professional outside help, helping us to make sure we're going to do a good job for you guys, for the city, for us. All right, and I think there are other points of collaboration that can be really helpful, as Acting Chief Mahuna mentioned. There's a local resource that sounds like maybe it won't be as pricey, or we may not have to wait for it. So I think we can put a couple bids out and see if we can get some outside help in determining our long range. And then maybe this is also the time, even though we're in an early phase of our tier 2, if we're feeling that how the Captain Rollins investigation went, like, is this the time where we consider doing an outside look at that? I don't know. What do you think, Evan? Are you seeing any texts about Rollins back and forth from Sharon Rishi? Maybe Evan's not with us. Okay. All right. Well, I do want to touch
I'm
base
getting
on-
milk for my kids. What do you all need?
Okay. Michael or Christina, or Nancy, I see, and Linda, do you want to weigh in on whether or not you feel like this is a subject that we should be bringing up early on in our agenda moving forward, talking a little bit more about Captain Rollins? I'm seeing Michael using his
Yeah.
thumbs up emoji.
Nicole, anything that we can be as transparent as possible would bode extremely well for our group. I think. Thank you.
Okay. Well, is it okay if I am emailing Jerry to kind of work up what we want to talk about in our early agenda, and we'll use Dropbox. Please hit me up on Dropbox, or Jerry, maybe you can put out an email that we can respond to, but we need to figure out a way to get the stuff on the agenda, the meat of our meetings early.
So I think we're meeting tomorrow too, right, Nicole? Okay, perfect. So let's start with that, and then Shannon, as far as communicating through Dropbox, and messages can come out through me to the group, but members just can't communicate necessarily to just each other on Dropbox or via private communication about
Yeah,
past
so
events?
I know that I just want to address, public law stuff, and it is annoying. It's not meant to, I mean, the effect is it does make things harder, but I hope that everyone knows that it's not, something that the city council or any, I'm coming on here to give you arbitrary, limits on your communication. It's truly, we want to comply with the law. So in terms of Dropbox, initially, it's really like if you're going out and you're like, okay, we want to look at the facts of, I don't know, like we want to compile all the complaints from last year from Westland, pop them in there and people can look at them. But if there is communication within Dropbox, like on the comments, you're going into essentially the serial meetings, you're touching on that issue. And, my job here is to avoid litigation or avoid violations of that law. And so my advice is Dropbox is not a way to communicate, and get around public meetings law. It's really a way to provide information so everybody can read it beforehand and then come into this meeting or into a meeting, a public meeting, and discuss it. And so if it would be, I think there will be a lot of progress now that Dr. Dawson's been chosen as the chair to determine what the agenda is and what, how to move forward and when to schedule the meetings. And, but yeah, I would advise you communicate directly with Jerry, and then, then he can send out information to your, to the group members.
Okay, so for Jerry and I will be meeting tomorrow. I'll have a list that I think will hopefully serve people's needs. Can everyone just pipe up now before we kind of bring ourselves to a close and chat about what you would like on the agenda? I'm just going to throw out, since it sounds like some people would like, Captain Rollins investigation discuss. Thank you. I see some hands up. I'm just going to see it in the order. I saw Councilor Reliers go up first.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. So I'd like to ask the city manager to put together an RFI or an RFQ for consulting services. We don't need to know what the costs are right now, but through that RFQ process, we can determine what the costs are to provide the committee with the consultant that it needs or the consultant group that it needs. So my suggestion, Nicole, is that you place that on your agenda and kind of define exactly what it is that you're looking for as far as consultation. And then we can ask the city manager to work through that process.
Thank you. Dina?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Shannon. So the communications in Dropbox are not public. If comments are made in there, they're not public.
They are public, but it's essentially like a closed, well, I know Dropbox is, my understanding is it's available, but it's not the way that, my understanding of the way that it is it's in a gray area, and I don't think it's worth it to try and communicate that way.
Thank you.
And I think it was, I can't tell if it was Evan or Linda, but let's hear from Linda. Let's be chivalrous, Evan.
Well, we can bring this forward to the next meeting, but I'd like to understand how you can form small subcommittees within a committee, because I know council meets in small subcommittees. Am I not Am I right? So I'd like to know, maybe for the next meeting, and maybe it can be researched and get back to us of how we can communicate in between with other task members, that we're not violating any public meeting laws, and we're not violating any quorums. It's my understanding that as long as you don't have a quorum where they can vote or so, I don't want to take any more time with this because we're at the end of it. And, but I'd like to understand how we can meet in small groups or it just discuss in between so we can bring information forward to the whole committee at the next time. There should be some way we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, do you have any just quick words about that? Like if we can just say have a subcommittee of 2 people and that would be good? Not good?
Well, yeah, you can have a subcommittee and then provide, if your goal is to provide information to the group, the task force, then you can come back and do that. If you're coming back and together forming a recommendation to give to the task force, that's an issue. You need to be able to just, I guess, you're gathering information and there's kind of no recommendations coming along with that. I mean, you could obviously have thoughts about it in that process, but that you were then providing it in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Evan?
All right, my girls are running around naked and screaming, so to the degree that interferes with what I'm about to say, I'm sorry. So I would like to put on our agenda, I think it probably would be an executive session item for us. I'd like to talk to the city manager about why we made the statement supporting Captain Rowland's investigation. And I'd like the city manager to be present for that, to explain why he made that public statement. I don't think any of us believe that investigation by Captain Rowlands was appropriate or adequate. And I may have a misunderstanding about the comment that was made publicly, but in order for me to have confidence in the work going forward, I need to understand why that happened. So I'm asking for that to be an item for us in the executive session to discuss.
I think that will dovetail nicely with, what we think should be the next step in that possible outside investigation. Evan, your hand's still up. Do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Madam Mayor, do you want to add anything else? Or did I don't know if I saw Chief Mahuna's hand up, but just wanted to kind of give you guys both a chance to talk. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for attending this meeting, and I pretty much promise not to cry next time. I'm sorry about that. But thank you so much for just really being patient with each other. This is tough work, and I'm so grateful for everyone here who's really committed to this. I can see that everyone here is committed. So thank you. And I know that there are some people who are not on the screen who are also committed, but we just need to reach out to everyone and make sure we can all get through this. So thank you so much, and stay safe, everyone. Double masking. It just gets more and more every day, right? So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. Have a good night.
Bye.
All good, Kathy? Okay, thank you.